I didn't think much of that morning at first. Just another quiet shift, just another cup of burnt coffee cooling on the counter, just another old woman walking her route like she'd done 1,000 times before. Then I heard that sound, that dry crack cutting through the air, and I knew right then something wasn't just wrong. It was the kind of wrong that sticks with you. Yeah, that happened. I was standing behind my coffee cart in Hawthorne Plaza, wiping down the same metal surface I'd wiped 100 times before, half paying attention to the world and half still waking up. You know what I mean? The sun wasn't fully up yet, the stones on the walkway still held that damp chill from the night, and everything felt calm, almost too calm, like the day hadn't decided what it wanted to be yet. That's when I saw Miss Lillian coming down the path, same as always, small steps, steady rhythm, tap, tap, tap. That cane of hers hitting the stone like a metronome that never missed a beat. Everybody around here knew her, not in a loud way, just in that quiet, respectful way, like you don't bother her unless she asks, because she doesn't need your help, and she definitely doesn't need your pity. She's been blind longer than I've been alive, and she moves through that plaza better than most people with perfect vision, and I always admired that, even if I never said it out loud. Now, I wasn't staring, I never did, but I kept an eye out just in case, because sometimes people get careless, and sometimes careless is all it takes. That's when I noticed Officer Collins stepping off the grass, cutting across toward her like he'd already made up his mind about something. You ever see someone walk like that, like the space belongs to them, like everyone else is just in the way? Yeah, that was him. Clean uniform, straight posture, one hand hovering near his belt like it needed to remind people who he was. He stopped her about 3 steps out and said, "Ma'am, hold up a second," and just like that, the whole mood shifted. Miss Lillian stopped, calm as ever, cane tip resting right on the stone. "I'm just walking my usual route," she said, same tone she probably used every morning. No attitude, no fear, just fact. But he didn't respond to that, not really. His eyes were already somewhere else, locked on that cane, like it was the only thing that mattered. "You're out here alone?" he asked, and she said, "I always am," like she couldn't understand why that even needed to be said. That's when something in me started tightening up, like my body knew before my brain caught up. Then he said it. "Let me see that cane." And there was this pause, not long, but heavy, like everything hung there for a second. Miss Lillian's hand tightened just a little. "I need it to walk," she said. Simple. Clear. That should have been the end of it, right? But it wasn't. I slid my phone closer without thinking. Angled it low, hit record, didn't even look at the screen. Just trusted it was catching what it needed to catch, because something told me this wasn't about to go right. He didn't ask again. He reached. Fast. Grabbed that cane just below her hand like it was nothing, like it belonged to him now. "Sir," she said, and her voice changed just enough to let you know she wasn't okay with it. "That's not yours to take." He pulled once, then harder, and she held on for a second, just long enough to show she wasn't giving it up willingly. Then her grip slipped, and suddenly she was standing there without the one thing that told her where the world was. I felt my chest go tight, watching it like I was the one who lost my balance. "Give that back," she said, still calm, still controlled, but you could hear something underneath it now, something stronger. He didn't even look at her, just turned the cane in his hands, tapping it, inspecting it like it was some random object he picked up off the ground. "Making sure it's legit," he said, and I swear for a second I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so ridiculous it didn't feel real. "Legit. A blind woman's cane. You kidding me?" "What exactly are you checking?" she asked, and that's when he bent it. Just slightly at first, like he was testing it, like curiosity was more important than common sense. I remember whispering under my breath, "Don't do that," like he could hear me from across the walkway. But he didn't stop. There was this sharp crack loud enough to snap the morning in half, and suddenly the cane wasn't whole anymore. One piece dropped near his boot, the other rolled off toward the grass, and for a second, everything just froze. Miss Lillian reached forward, both hands, searching, not panicking, not screaming, just trying to understand where her world went. "You broke it," she said, quiet, almost like she was confirming it to herself, and he just shrugged. "Next time, don't argue." Then he turned and walked away like none of it mattered, like she was just another stop in his day. I didn't even think I just moved. Came out from behind the cart phone, still recording voice, trying to stay steady. "Ma'am, I got you. I got you." I picked up the pieces, placed them in her hands, and she held them close, fingers tracing that break like she was memorizing it, like she needed to understand what just happened before she could feel anything about it. I asked if she wanted to sit, if she wanted help, and she just said, "Walk with me," so I did. I didn't grab her, didn't rush her, just stayed beside her, calling out what was ahead. Small crack, step coming up, bridge in 10 feet. And she walked the whole way home holding those broken pieces like they still meant something. Inside her house it was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes everything feel heavier. I gave her some water and she set the pieces down on the table, lining them up carefully like they could still be one thing if you just looked at them the right way. Then she said, "Can you send that video to my son?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And when I typed his name, it popped up instantly like my phone already knew who he was. And that's when I realized this wasn't just going to end here. Her son Daniel showed up less than 2 hours later, didn't call, didn't text, just walked in. Like he already knew something was wrong. He wasn't loud, wasn't emotional, but there was something about him, something controlled, like everything he did had a purpose. He looked at the cane first, then the video. "Play it," he said, and we watched the whole thing together. No skipping, no talking, just letting it play out. When it ended, he asked me what time it happened, if I still had the original file questions that felt less like curiosity and more like preparation. "You okay?" he asked his mom, and she said, "Just tired." And that hit harder than anything else that morning because it wasn't just about the cane, it was about everything behind it. A detective came not long after, said they'd had complaints about Collins before, but nothing solid, nothing they could really use. "You do now," Daniel said, calm as ever, and from that point on, things moved fast. Evidence bag for the cane, copies of the video, requests for logs, cameras, reports, everything lined up like he'd done this before. No yelling, no threats, just precision. By the afternoon, the story wasn't just between us anymore. They called a community meeting, packed room people, expecting the usual runaround, statements, maybe an apology if we're lucky. Instead, they played the video. No explanation, no excuses, just the raw footage. And when that crack echoed through the speakers, you could feel the room change. People stopped whispering, stopped shifting in their seats, just sat there and watched, because now it wasn't a story anymore, it was something you couldn't ignore. By the next morning, Collins was off the schedule. By the end of the week, new rules, new policies, body cams mandatory, no touching mobility aids without clear danger, all of it written down because of one moment that somebody decided to record. A week later, I was back at my cart, same spot, same routine, and there she was again, Miss Lillian walking that same path with a new cane tap, 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 like nothing could take that rhythm away from her. Daniel stood off to the side, not interfering, not guiding, just watching. And when she passed the exact spot where it happened, she didn't slow down, didn't hesitate, just kept going like it didn't own her anymore. And I keep thinking about that, you know what I mean? Because some people will say it was just a cane, just a small thing, something that got fixed, replaced, moved on from. But it didn't feel small when it happened, and it doesn't feel small now. It felt like control, like assumption, like someone deciding they knew your place without ever asking. So I'll ask you this. If I hadn't hit record, if that moment didn't exist on video, would anything have changed? Or would it have just been another story people brushed off? Another, he said. She said that went nowhere. Let me know what you think. Seriously, I want to hear it. Was that justice or just accountability for once? And have you ever seen something like this happen? Something small that turned out not to be small at all? Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it, because sometimes the only reason things change is because someone decided not to look away.